Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Kamani, licensed clinical psychologist. Welcome to Manifesting Healing Monday. We are having a very special um, time together today. We're focusing on Black women. We deserve joy. And first, I want to say welcome to my channel, Lifting As We Climb Consulting Wellness Services, where we focus on supporting individual and collective healing. So, we are talking about this topic. And if you've been following me for a while, I've been talking about Black women in toxic work environments and supporting our healing. And so this is an extension of that work because when we think about healing, we want to remember that healing is possible. And part of healing is reconnecting to our joy, which is so important because as Black women, we're often on the move, on the go, we're doing things. So today we have guests from AfroFlow Yoga. They will be introducing themselves in a moment. And then we will talk about grounding ourselves in the breath because many times when we are stressed or we are going under a lot of different things, we kind of hold our breath or our breath becomes shallow. And it's important for us to breathe to let things out, right? Because that's the way of releasing the trauma. Therapy is one way, right? But also breath work and movement is another way for us to really deal with and cope with trauma. So I just want to let you know I'm doing something different today where I'm on live stream with StreamYard, but I'm also going to go live on Instagram. So this is really testing my technical abilities. So
Got this.
please bear with me with that. And so we are going to dive right into the conversation. So again, thank you for joining. So we're going to have Gina introduce herself, and then Leslie will be logging on as well. In terms of just a brief introduction about who you are, and then we'll go into the discussion. So welcome, Gina.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for doing what you do and having this platform so we can have these kind of conversations. My name is Gina Onayiga. I'm a licensed clinical social worker based in New York and Connecticut. In the capacity of mental health in terms of therapy and child welfare.
Awesome, awesome. And can you tell just a little bit in terms of how it is that as a therapist that you got into AfroFlow Yoga?
So I was introduced to yoga at work while working in child welfare, very stressful environment. One of our colleagues would take us into one of the auditoriums for lunch and teach us yoga. Um,
Mm,
Outside of work, when I was looking for spaces to practice, I noticed
sure.
that I was often perhaps the only Black woman in the room, and I was searching for
Oh,
spaces where people looked like me, and it
yeah.
felt a little more welcoming. And
Yes.
I got on Google, started, I don't know what made me type in Afro yoga.
Hmm.
I think that's what I started off with. And then that led me to AfroFlow Yoga at Albanelli. And that became my sanctuary for quite some time,
Awesome.
just to, like you mentioned, deal with these toxic work environments. So
Yeah.
I loved it so much, I decided to study it and then became certified.
Awesome. Awesome. So, Gina, I think it's important, as you mentioned before, in terms of you learned about yoga in the workplace, which is really powerful. And so we have to remember as Black women, and again, if you want to see the other videos I've done about Black women healing from toxic work environments, they're all on my YouTube channel. And so when we think about healing and that healing is possible and joy, many times as Black women, and I'm sure you could attest, Gina, as a therapist also, that many times as a Black woman, that we are often told that we have to get things done and we always have to be on the move, and like so many things are put upon us that we often feel like we don't have enough time or energy to do things that are enjoyable for ourselves. And it may be so long that we either don't have the time or we may even forget what we really like to do, right? So with so many different obligations, we're forgetting what is it that I want to do. And I see in the chat, there's a question. I would love to know more about AfroFlow Yoga. So if you could share just a little bit about AfroFlow Yoga.
Check us out. So, AfroFlow Yoga, in short, is yoga, dances from the African diaspora, accompanied with healing instruments. So, your live drumming, your kalimba, your tons of instruments, but it's got an Afrocentric vibe to it. It's specifically designed for that, in terms of the idea of dance or movement accompanied with yoga being healing, and the incorporating the instruments. It was founded by a couple. The Leslie, who will join us shortly, is the yogi slash dancer, and accompanied by her husband, who plays a long list of different instruments. So together, it's the beautiful marriage of movement as healing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gina. So we'll dive into the conversation. I know Leslie's going to be joining us. So what would you say is the difference between, or how would you define joy? How would you define joy, Gina?
For me, I would say joy is a way of being. I feel like it's a little more spiritual. Um, okay, let me get my words together. Okay. So I think it's the type of way of being that allows you to experience the kind of happy that lights your spirit.
Yes.
And that is consistent no matter what's happening in life. So being able to come back to a place where even in the hardest circumstances, you can still experience or see what joy is and carry that with you.
Yes. 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 Beautiful. Beautiful. Hello, Leslie. How are you?
Hello, I'm
Good to
well.
see you. Good to see you. So actually, we just kind of got started. So I'm going to have you introduce yourself. Gina started talking a little bit about AfroFlow Yoga and her interest in it. But there's already requests in the chat to talk more about AfroFlow Yoga. So as the founder, as a co-founder, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself and tell a little bit about AfroFlow Yoga.
Great, great, great. Well, thank you. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you, Kamani, for inviting us. And hey, Gina.
Hi.
Thanks for representing. I am actually in Canada and I had a little glitch. I guess Canadians aren't that happy with StreamYard. So I had to navigate. I was like, I'm not going to let it rob me of my joy of being with you.
Exactly. No joy robbers here.
Right, exactly. So I'm delighted to be here. Um, yes, my name is Leslie Salmon Jones. I am the co-founder of AfroFlow Yoga. I started with my husband. It'll be 15 years with my wonderful
Wow.
husband, Jeff Jones. And we started basically from both of our healing journeys, really. After going through it, West Africa, and losing three of our parents, they had passed. Jeff and I have been married for 25 years. He'll be 26 years in a month, actually. And we really wanted to learn more about our ancestry, and so went throughout West Africa and Haiti and Jamaica, and it really it created an opportunity for more deep healing.
Yeah.
2 years actually. And so we have been doing it together. My background's in dance. I trained at Alvin Ailey back in '91. I'm dating myself, and started dance when I was 7. And dance really brings me so much joy. And so after my own healing journey, finding something that brought me joy and sharing the joy with the world. And Jeff is an amazing multi-instrumentalist and also an engineer. And so we decided to combine our gifts. We don't have kids, but AfroFlow Yoga is our child, who's now
Yes.
has roots in many homes and hearts. So we've been doing healing circles, traveling throughout the world for 15 years, and really bringing lots of love and trauma healing to people from all over the world. So
Yes.
here we are. It's a joy
Here
to
you
be here.
are. Yes. So, Leslie, can you tell the audience just a little bit, because I know they're going to be asking, how would they access AfroFlow Yoga, like the classes, and if they're not in the area that you're in, how would they still access AfroFlow Yoga?
Yes, well, we have amazing teachers like Gina and who are doing classes when they can in their areas, and we also have online classes. So we have virtual classes, and those have been going pretty strong since COVID. We have hybrid. We have another teacher, Shiona Little, who's teaching a lot of live classes in the Pennsylvania, DC area. And then we also have retreats. And so with COVID, it's a little different. Things have changed. We used to have classes, live classes at Alvin Ailey, for example. But with COVID, we're doing a little more concentrated. So we have an upcoming retreat at Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health in October, and we'll be also going to Belize in November. And drum roll, we love each year since 2014 to teach in Costa Rica. So we're going to be there for 5 weeks, January through February next year, and we're going to be having offerings then. And our intensive is going to be on fire. It's going to be actually during Valentine's week in Costa Rica, and that's our 15th anniversary. And this is a time when people just come and heal by the ocean, by the moon, just with nature. So
yes, beautiful, beautiful, Leslie. And full disclosure, I forgot to tell everyone that I'm part of the AfroFlow Yoga teacher prep program. So that's how I met Leslie and Gina. So I know them in different contexts. So I just want to just be very transparent about that. So Leslie, we actually started in terms of asking Gina, how would you define joy? How would you define that?
Mm-hmm. And I think it's different for many people, but I could say for myself, you know, when I think about joy, I think of really gifting myself the opportunity to tap into that deep love and my gifts, to cultivate my gifts so I can share with others. And I get so much joy really doing that, and then sharing it, and then seeing others have joy. That deep intrinsic, like, cultivating the essence, having that opportunity, as opposed to just going through the motions of life, but really feeling that deep vibrancy within.
Right. So it's like you feel it within, but you also want to share the joy with others. And then when other people feel joy, then that gives you joy, right? So it
Yes.
kind of flows off each other. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. And how would you guys, well, I want to read something in the chat. It said, I did a video podcast last week with Dr. AJ Paris Atkins Jackson on self-care in Black women. She wrote 3 research articles on this topic. I'm so glad we're talking about this on a larger scale. Thank you for sharing that. And, you know, I started off talking about how important it is for us to start with breath, and I just dived into the conversation, right? So I wasn't modeling what we said we're going to do. So we're going to take a step back, everyone, and we're going to start with breath. Because what I want us to know and to feel and to experience is the importance of us as Black women to stop, pause. Our lives are busy. Pause and connect to our breath, because that is healing. So we have the opportunity to have 2 AfroFlow Yoga instructors with us to guide us through a very brief breathing exercise. So we're going to go at that at the beginning and then at the end of our conversation. So I'll turn it over.
Great. Well, Gina, would you like me to go and then you close us out, or vice versa?
Yes.
Okay.
You open us up, and then I'll take care of it.
Okay, great. So I invite you to sit in a comfortable seated position, and some of us might not actually be in a place where we can sit. We might even be in our cars listening. So what I would say is keep your eyes open if you're in your car. But if you are seated in a comfortable position, I invite you to take your gaze inward, perhaps. Close your eyes, soften your gaze. And even if you are not sitting down, if you're on the move, you can actually also connect to your breath anytime, anywhere. So wherever you are, taking this moment to take the gaze inward. And as we do this, this brings us to the present moment, helps us slow down. They've been moving very quickly, and it only takes a few minutes to slow down and become aware. And when we do so, we're in the present moment. So perhaps notice your breath. Notice the rise and fall of your breath, the quality of your breath. And as you do so, notice if you're holding on to any tension. Perhaps your neck and shoulders. I just drop my shoulders down. If you soften your gaze, relax your eyes, relax your jaw, your lips, your mouth, and then become aware of the rise and fall of the breath. And as you do so, take a moment to take a body scan from the top of your head all the way down to your toes. I like to establish a relationship with the breath, the inhale being the energizing breath. And then the exhale is where we release and let go. So take a time to notice what you're feeling, what needs energy, what needs release. Making your way down to your shoulders, softening your hands, your fingers, your chest, belly, down to your hips, your tailbone, beginning to feel the weight of your bones where you're standing or sitting. And as you do so, locating your feet if they're still, if your legs are crossed, if you can uncross them, uncross them. And that point of connection to the earth, feeling that relationship to the earth, that nourishing, loving support. Imagine roots from your feet, roots spreading deep and wide, connecting you, grounding you. And as you breathe in and breathe out, perhaps send that breath all the way down through your feet, down to the earth. Think of your loved ones, your support system, and even those who've come before, our ancestors who've given us breath, who've given us life. And as you breathe in and breathe out, think of breathing life as if we're all connected to the tree of life. Nourishment through the root system, through your feet, your ankles, your calves, your knees, your thighs, the floor of your pelvis, your tailbone, your belly, perhaps bringing length as you breathe into the spine, expanding through the belly, the rib cage, the chest as you breathe in. And as you breathe out, relaxing, softening, chest, rib cage, belly. And again, inhale, fill belly, rib cage, chest. And exhale, release, soften, chest, rib cage, belly. And as you bring the awareness to that breath on your own, softening shoulders, and breathing in, filling, and releasing, gently guiding the awareness all the way up to your heart, your throat, your mouth, your nose, your eyes, your third eye center of divine wisdom through the crown of your head, all the way up to the sky, above and beyond your physical presence, connecting to the universal energy, God, Creator, whatever's in your belief system. And breathe, send the breath there. Imagine healing light, beautiful golden sun above you, healing you. And as you breathe in and breathe out, bring that golden light all the way back down through the crown of your head, third eye, eyes, nose, mouth, into your heart. And now here I invite you, if it's comfortable for you, to place one hand on your heart and feeling the sensations of your breath in your chest, and your heart beating, and perhaps place one hand on your belly. And on your own, quietly taking about 4 to 6 breaths, filling and emptying. Noticing a deep breath in and a deep sigh out, releasing whatever's not serving. Know that this practice is available for you anytime. Thank you so much. Ashe.
That's awesome. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you. And again, this is an example of why breathing is so important for us as Black women and why it's so important for us to stop, right? Because we are so busy that we are having a lot of health challenges, mental health, physical health challenges in a way we haven't had before. And so it honors ourselves to take a moment to breathe, but it's also honors her ancestors because they weren't able to stop and breathe. And so I don't know if you can see my shirt, it says Black joy is a form of resistance. So this is our form of resistance, is to be able to stop, pause, and find what gives us joy, right? So, and again, I'm so glad that I actually had that gaffe in which I made a mistake, because I want you to see how easy it is for us to get caught up in what we have to do, that sometimes we lose sight of breath, right? So remember, breath is important. And as Leslie said, you can go back to this at any time, okay? So as we talked about joy, can you maybe share your perspectives of what is the difference between happiness and joy? Because sometimes people are like, isn't it the same thing? How is it different? I don't get it. So what would you guys say is the difference between happiness and joy?
I'll go first. I think for me, it's happiness seems a little external. That one thing that you saw that kind of brought a smile to your face, that felt good for a moment. And joy for me, like I mentioned, is what lights my spirit.
Yeah,
It's not dependent on something that happened externally to bring me any happiness. It's something that I carry with me, something that's sustained. It's something that's more internal, and
yes,
and can be experienced sometimes in the toughest situations.
right. Thank you, Gina. What about for you, Leslie?
Yeah, I completely agree with Gina. Sometimes I feel like happiness is a little more not as quite as deep. So I'll just give you an example. I just actually had COVID, and I was getting ready to go on a wonderful trip to Baja, and I was really happy I was going on the trip. And a couple hours before I got on the flight, I tested positive for COVID. And what happened to me was a big shift. It was like actually a relief, because what I realized was my spirit actually needed to be home. And my
Ah,
spirit actually needed a retreat, completely silent.
right.
And I needed to declutter. And I just started feeling this joy, like so much joy of being able to give myself, as Gina said, feeding my spirit on that deep,
Yeah,
deep level.
yes,
So it's so deep. It's just touching that place where oftentimes, like, we're running, and we don't
yeah,
have opportunity to go that deep into
right.
that nurturing, loving place.
Yes. And often too, we're so busy taking care of other things, we don't really pay attention to what our spirit is saying to us. So sometimes we have that inner voice telling us, don't do this or don't do that or slow down. And sometimes we just keep going on and that harms us, right? And so you were able to find joy, as Gina talked about, and you talked about, like, it's not something external, it's something internal, and it's very deep. And sometimes it's like unexpected, right? So who would expect that you could find joy when you have COVID and not able to take your trip, right? But you were able to find that joy, which I think is so powerful. So I'm wondering, in your work with Black women, so not only your work with Black women, but Black women you know personally, right? So what have you noticed in terms of some of the challenges for Black women in terms of connecting to our joy?
But I've seen great responsibility. A lot of us are the caregivers, the person that provides balance, the go-to person in the family, not only for your own children or your immediate family, but the friends of that family, the friends of
Yeah.
the friends of that family that know that you're a resource that they can tap into. But just great responsibility. And also the idea of not, what you mentioned in terms of not knowing how to access that joy. Some of us are walking around so disconnected to ourselves and caught up in the day-to-day busyness of life.
Yes, yes, yes. And we're just trying to survive many times, right? So we're so busy trying to put out all these different fires, take care of all these different people, that we just lose sight of what's going on with me internally and how can I make myself feel better. And I'm not saying in a sense that like, or that any of us are saying that just think positive thoughts and the world will be better, right? What
Right.
we're saying is that in spite of everything, the world is crazy, but we have to find ways to center our joy or else we are being harmed. And
Right.
so, again, I don't want people to think it's this toxic positivity. That is not what we're saying, right? So, what about, so Gina, you're saying in terms of that's what you're seeing for Black women personally and professionally, right? That disconnect.
A lot of
It's
anxiety too. Anxiety. We're busy trying to get everything done, trying to do our best, super hard on ourselves.
Yeah,
Super hard on ourselves. Don't give ourselves grace when
right.
we don't know or didn't do.
Yes, 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 yes. So, like holding ourselves to these super high, unrealistic standards and not even recognizing how much we have done, right? So, that strengths based perspective,
Right.
right? Okay. What about for you, Leslie? What have you seen in terms of Black women? What are some of the barriers to us reconnecting to our joy?
Yeah, I would say definitely everything that Gina had mentioned. I would say the most impactful thing that I saw, that I've witnessed in
Uh-huh.
the healing circles, is the pain and the caring of the pain.
Yes.
And it goes, and sometimes it's like not even aware, like
Yeah.
the reservoir, the depth, the generational pain
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
that it's like sometimes you can't even, if it's like opening the pressure cooker. And so
yes.
if you don't have that place or space or community or to allow that to come out, it's a compounded pain and you just keep
Mm,
pushing it down,
yeah,
and then it can like explode, and that's a real barrier to to our joy.
yeah.
And so I've been in many healing circles where we just like cried, like gave ourselves permission to cry. And I mean, I'm not talking just cry, I'm talking wail,
Sob.
Right,
like
right.
just sob, like, ugh, that deep
Yes,
release,
yes,
that's it, Gina. Yeah, release. And we've seen it many times in the circle, right? And whether that release comes through tears, whether it comes through dancing, whether it comes through screaming, whether it comes to all of that at once,
yeah, yeah,
that is to me one of the most important pieces
yeah,
that needs to happen to
yeah.
joy.
And I think in society and just the way we've been brought up, we're often not given the permission to be soft, to be vulnerable, right? Because we always need to be on guard too, because there's so many things that are negative that are trying to attack us. So we have to be on guard, but you carry that on. And so you're busy, 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 busy. And being busy all the time is a trauma response. So when is it that we take that time or find those places that we are able to be vulnerable? We are able to be ourselves. We are able to share our pain. And I know that like Brene Brown talks a lot about vulnerability. And there's been a lot of concern amongst Black people about, well, we don't have the luxury to be
Right.
vulnerable many times because we always have to, be prepared, right? And so, how do we have those safe space or brave spaces that we do have that? And I think also what I've also heard in therapy is that Black women are sometimes concerned about letting the pressure, out because they're concerned about all this is going to come out. It's going to be so overwhelming and I won't be able to stop crying or I won't be able to function anymore, right? So it's that. And then the thing I've also seen is that Black women will say, I'll say, oh, so what do you do for fun? What gives you joy? And literally
We don't
they're
know.
stumped. They don't know. they don't know. And so I have to like keep working with them. So what about when you were a kid? What did you like to do as a kid? Right. And it takes a lot to even get that out. Right. And then when I say, okay, what about, can we possibly work on you engaging in some of those activities? It's either I don't have the time, it's too expensive, I'm too tired, right? So, what advice would you give to Black women, given all that we've said already in terms of those barriers? What words of wisdom would you like to share with Black women who are listening about reconnecting to our joy?
One thing that's coming up for me is do that thing. So, even in talking about what you enjoyed as a child, and judgment is a big thing too that holds people back from experiencing certain things. Like, say you love to jump rope, but now in your 40s, you're like, I can't be out there jump roping. Grab the jump rope. Rid yourself of the judgment of when you're supposed to do things and what you're supposed to stop doing by a certain age. Count it all joy as well.
Yeah.
I think if you don't know what gives you joy, explore. Give yourself room to just try different things and see if it lights up your spirit in a certain way, and not feel so tied to, well, self-care these days are massages. I have to get a mani and a pedi, and maybe
Right.
those aren't the things that light your spirit, but be open to exploring what things are interesting to you, just paying attention to spirit in general. I think paying attention to that little inkling in that you feel deep in your soul that lights up that excitement.
Yes. And I think also disconnecting that sense that it needs to cost a lot of money. So because society says these are the joyful things, these are the joy. No, determine for yourself. And there's also things we can each do every day that are free, right? That might bring us joy, but it's absolutely free. And so it's important for us to recognize that and connect to that and not use that as a barrier for us connecting to joy, right? So Leslie, what words of wisdom would you give to Black women?
Yeah. I would say also, like, I think about a time when I was in a very dark period of my life, and I really needed to find the light, and I needed to find the joy. So I did a lot of exploration of my heart. What makes my heart sing. I journaled. And just like you said, when I remembered when I was a child. And that's when I went back to dance, because I was like, I always felt so joyful when I would dance. So I made a whole career out of it.
Yes.
So I'm of the school of follow your heart, because your heart will never lead you astray. Like, it will never lead you astray. And it might sound like really risky because, we got bills to pay, we have all these things to do. But really, and if you're a spiritual person, it's like syncing with spirit, with God, with whatever is in your belief system, because I trust that. I trust that more than my head. Because my mind can be a little tricky. My mind can like limit myself. My mind can like self-doubt, all of those negative self-talk. I could talk myself out of it. But when I fine-tune to spirit, it's a practice.
Yes.
And that listening and when I do something that maybe, as Gina said, maybe, I'm gonna try something. I'm gonna explore. There's always direct confirmation. Like, yes, green light, yes.
Yeah.
But if I'm hitting red lights and resistance and pain and it's starting to manifest, it's like, no, that's not good for my spirit.
Right. Like, God is not directing you in that way. You're not paying attention, right?
But I'm just like, and it takes the onus out of me in a sense, because I'm just like, I'm listening. I'm listening and I'm being guided. Right. And then it's helpful because it takes the weight off of me for, I got to figure something out. I'm like, no, all I need to do is just listen and be still. And then it'll come. Yeah.
And I think it will be helpful, because I think a lot of Black women listening to this, we don't know how to be still and listen. What does that look like? literally, what does that look like?
What does it look like? Not taking action.
Hmm.
When you sit there and you're thinking about the pros and the cons, and you've got your list together, and you're using all types of logic to say, all right, if I do this, this is gonna happen.
Uh-huh.
Or even the anxiety of thinking about worst case scenarios after thinking of coming up with anything. And
Hmm.
I guess what I challenge my clients to do as well is, as much as you create that list for the worst case scenarios, I need you to also create that list of all the best things that can happen, all the possibilities of this one step.
Uh-huh.
And it be
So more of a balance.
to explore both, and not only leading, like not feeding that anxiety always.
Yeah.
I think we
Yeah.
get up and keep that going, that our muscle for any type of positive thinking or any hope or any joy is kind of diminished by that anxiety.
Yes, absolutely. So not always worst case scenario, right?
Right.
Yes, yes, yes. And what about for you, Leslie? What does it mean? How would you advise people? Or what words of wisdom can you say about be still? What does that look like?
Mm-hmm. I think about my experiences, and when I had really I was thinking about this morning, actually, when I was younger, and I did some really not the wisest things. I was making some very poor decisions for myself.
We know it.
And then I was like, I left Toronto. I was like, I'm moving to New York. And so I left all these unfinished things that ruptures,
Yeah.
all these ruptures. And I just kept going, but I had all this stuff in the past. And I actually needed to reconcile with my family members who I caused harm to. I had to clean it up. I had to go back, and that was part of the healing. But what I realized was that I had to be still to do that, because I kind of like stopped running, and then it came up. And in that stillness, I realized I was able to move mountains. I was able to actually move mountains in the stillness.
Wow. Yes. Yes. But we
If that
have to
makes
have patience with ourselves, right? We have to have
sense.
patience with ourselves and understand the power of the stillness, the power of reconnecting to spirit, right?
Yeah.
Because momentous things can happen. And I'll just share really briefly too, is that many of you know that I just left a very toxic work job situation, which really fueled me from doing that, to do that series that I have on YouTube. But one of the things that I noticed was, as I was still, and we talked about little girl, we talked about things we like to do as a little girl. As I was still, I heard my little girl voice inside of me saying, don't go back, don't make me go back. Right. And so that was me connecting to that inner voice. I had to stop and listen. Right. And I also had to give honor to that. Right. Because I knew that she was hurting, I was hurting. Right. And so again, it's important for us to have that connection. So I'm wondering if you both could talk a little bit in terms of the resources and services that you have to support Black women connecting to joy.
Definitely AfroFlow Yoga.
Yeah.
Definitely AfroFlow Yoga. Actually, for those who love to read, there's these two books that kind of stand out to me right now. Purposeful Perspectives. I think that book is specifically designed for us, as well as Black Joy. Black Joy, Stories of Resistance, Resilience, and there's another R, Restoration.
Okay. I'll put that in the description section too, so people can have that. Okay. And I see a question before I go to you, Leslie. A question in the chat. What would you say is the role of nature, natural environment, and reconnecting with ourselves, with spirit, and the overall wellness of women of African heritage?
Yeah. So actually, definitely in AfroFlow Yoga, we we connect to nature, because we are nature. You know,
Yes.
we are the water, we're the fire, we're the air, we're the earth. We return back, like the Sankofa. We go back and we return. And so it's essential. Like, I think about patriarchy and I think about colonization, and those systems of oppression omitted the earth intentionally for purposes of greed, for money.
Yeah.
And so our ancestors were connected to the earth. Our ancestors relied on the rhythms of nature to
Yeah.
inform, how are we going to eat today? Where are we
Huh.
going to sleep tonight?
Right.
What ritual do we need to do so that it will rain?
Yes.
So it's that intrinsic nature, that harmonious relationship, that sacred relationship that
Yes.
we're not part of. We've been brainwashed to think,
Yeah.
through conquering and dividing, that we are separate, but
Absolutely.
that is an illusion. It is
Yes.
not a
Yes. So reject the lie, right? So we are one with nature. And I think part of joy also is reconnecting to nature. And we know that like vitamin D is a natural mood elevator, and just being out in the air is just very refreshing. So I wanted to say, as we're winding down, and Leslie, I wanted to also give you an opportunity to talk a little bit more about AfroFlow Yoga, right? So when are the classes? How can people find out about the classes? How will they know about the teacher prep program? What is it? Like, if you could just share a lot more information about that, because people are so interested in it.
Yeah, well, we'd love for you to see you. We'd love for you to come. And as I had mentioned, we have wonderful teachers like Gina, who I'm so grateful for, because she's just an amazing human being. And you too, soon, Kamani. So we do have a teacher training program. It's done in 4 modules. And because people come from all over the world, the first module is actually online. We start it every September. And that's 8-week sessions that you both have gone through. And it's always amazing, like cohort of incredible folks. And then we have module 2 and 3, which are in person. It's going to be our first time back since COVID in a few weeks. And then we go to module 4, which is back online. So it gives people the opportunity to come together, do a little work. We go deep into the roots of the African diaspora and the connection to yoga in Africa, people.
Yes.
Yes, this is for us. It's all this, like the spiritual technologies that had been taken away, and it's not denouncing any religion. All people are welcome. It's to
Yes.
enhance. It's to
Yes.
deepen the roots.
Yes.
And we learn about the music, and we learn about the dance, and then community and healing and trauma healing. And so that's the teacher training program. And then my husband and I are doing virtual classes. I know some of you are like burnt out with Zoom. I know, I hear you right now. I hear you thinking, wow, girl, I can't. But I tell you, my husband has 11 different instruments he's bringing live to you on. This is online right now. We're doing this. And then in person, when we come in person, if you can come to the retreats, Costa Rica with the monkeys and the beautiful healing food and vibration, or here in Massachusetts, or, Shiona's teaching, Gina, wherever you can find, this is a place where we come in a healing circle of non-judgment of self and others. And it's for you. It is for
Yes.
you to just
Yes.
come and be yourself and feel
No
the
judgment.
love. No
No
judgment.
judgment.
I'll let
You're
Gina.
in your home, and it's so powerful too, because the live music, like, it's just so like powerful, and you just feel like that connection to the earth and the connection to the community, even though you're at your own home, right? And
Yeah.
that connection to our African ancestors. And I think it's so powerful too, Leslie. I'm so glad you said this, because when I came to the AfroFlow Yoga class, I was taking yoga before, but like sometimes I would get turned off because it seemed kind of elitist, or it seemed like there was a focus on your poses, and this is the right pose and all that, right? But AfroFlow Yoga is totally different, right? So, and learning that yoga started in Africa, And then it talks about the connection to the divine. Like, how do we connect to the divine on a different level? So that's what just really just stood out to me. And so as we're winding down, and we're going to go to our breathing exercise, I did want to also, and somebody said Zoom fatigue is real. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So, as we think about Zoom and all these other things, right? And as we're talking about connecting to our joy, I think it's important for us as Black women to just think about what are the things that we're going to do to identify what is joyful for us. But part of that is that we have to be connected to who we are and how we're feeling, right? So I want to introduce this, I call it a joyometer, right? So if you could rate on a scale from 1 to 10, how joyful you are each day, right? So I have a Black woman, We Deserve Joy challenge, 5-day free challenge, which starts today, right? This is the kickoff. So for those of you who want to be in the challenge, I have the information in the chat. You can click that and you'll receive notification of when I go live each of the 5 days. And you'll also get the replays. So the call to action for you, if you are in that challenge, and for all of us, is every day track how you feel in terms of your joy level on a scale from 1, like I am not feeling too joyful today, to 10, I'm ecstatic, right? Because again, it's important for us to connect to how we're feeling. And I want us to just keep track of it for the next 5 days to see, huh, Wednesday I was like at a 7, and then on Thursday I went down to a 3, right? Like what was going on in terms of impacting your mood? So as we close, we are going to do a breathing exercise because, as I mentioned before, breath is healing, movement is healing, right? And there was a woman, her name is Jasmine Mills, and she has this whole thing about Black girls breathing, right? Which is very helpful. So I'll put that in the chat in the description section as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Gina in terms of our breathing exercise. But before we do that, I want to give Gina and Leslie an opportunity to share any additional comments that I didn't cover or any other areas that I did not cover today.
I think I want to go back to pain and trauma and ways that can withhold us from experiencing joy. And in terms of this pretty package of self-care, doing the work is so important, and not that it's light. I know it's not light, but just reminding everyone to do that work, to not allow that to withhold you from experiencing joy.
Yes. And I appreciate you said that, Gina, because I think it's important to normalize as Black women that we do have a lot of pain. We do have a lot of trauma, right? And even though we do have the pain and trauma, that we can heal also. Because I don't want us to feel that we've gone through all these terrible things, these things keep happening to us, and there's no way out. We can find those moments, but also recognize that we have to continually do things to bring us joy, because there will continually be things that kind of attack us and kind of bring us down, right? So thank you.
It's a commitment.
What about, what was that, Gina?
I said it's a commitment.
Absolutely. It's a commitment to ourselves. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. What about for you, Leslie?
I would say that to add to that, I would say one of the things that has really been helpful for me is to reframe things that are happening. So, for example, I think of anytime I experience adversity, pain, like my brother passed away last year suddenly, like things that are really, really hard and you don't have any control of. I often think of taking that pain and composting it, using it as compost to create more of that inner garden. Like this is all part of life's experience. And so instead of holding on to that pain, I know that's medicine. I know it's medicine. When, as Gina said, we can do the work to go into it. And I know sometimes it's like, oh, I just don't want to deal with it. And so we create layers of calluses on top of that. And so I've seen in myself and in so many of our sisters the courage to go in, lean in, to breathe, to get still and be with that and just listen, and then begin to churn and compost that pain, which creates like a beautiful garden, like a beautiful, nourishing place. So I'd say like reframing when things happen. I know that's medicine to come, which is going to be even more joyful.
Yes. It's like symbolism, right? You think about like, that the garbage is coming in, right? But we're able to compost it and to transform it in a way that it fuels us to go to a higher level, right?
Yeah.
So think of all of us who've gone through some type of trauma, unhappiness, pain. How do we rechannel that so that we go to a higher level, right? So that growth. I think that's super powerful, super powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love that example, Leslie. So in terms of, this is a loss that I experienced that my life is forever changed, right? But then shifting that reframe to how lucky I was to experience a brother for such and such amount of years.
Yes.
How lucky was I to experience this with him? These are things that will never leave me.
Yes.
That's right. That's
yes.
right. A gift.
Yes.
It becomes a gift. It becomes a gift.
Absolutely. And I'm going to read these 2 comments in the chat, and then we're going to do our breathing to kind of wind us down. So one comment, this too shall be for my greatest good. Beautiful. AfroFlow Yoga classes are so healing, and it has helped me heal from childhood trauma. Hope you can take their classes. Loving ourselves through the pain is growth. Reframing is important, so important. It absolutely is. So, as we're winding down, again, as I mentioned before, we are starting with breathing and we're ending with breathing, right? Because we talked about also some challenging topics, and it's important that we stop, pause, and how do we release that? Okay, how do we release all that does no longer serves us? Okay, like beautiful chorus, release what all that no longer serves me, no longer works for me, right? Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Gina, for our closing breathing exercise.
Going with that theme of release, this is one of my favorite breaths. I like to take a deep breath in, roll my shoulders up towards my ears. And then on the breath, I want you to just sigh it out and let the shoulders drop. So I want to hear that breath. Let's do that one more time. Deep breath in, shoulders up. Exhale, release. I invite you to keep your eyes closed or send your gaze down towards the earth. As we started, I want you to take that right hand, place it on your heart. Take the left and place it on the belly. Just taking a moment to connect to self. Bringing your attention towards your heartbeat. Just breathing naturally here, not forcing any breath. Maybe taking a moment here to reflect on joy as your birthright. Taking a moment here to visualize something that brings you joy. Something, someone. That thing that lights your spirit. Taking a moment here just to reflect on anything that may have resonated with you this evening. I invite you to take a deeper breath in, filling the lungs, filling your belly, push against that left hand. And then hold the breath and exhale out the mouth. Nice and slow at your own cadence. Deep breath in. And exhale when you're ready. Deep breath in. And exhale slowly out the mouth. Coming back to a natural breath. Again, visualizing joy as your birthright. Ashe. Thank you,
Hey,
Kamani, for this platform. Thank you
beautiful.
for having us.
Absolutely. That was so beautiful. And I want us to remember, yes, joy is our birthright. We have every right to feel joy, and we need to make intentional efforts to reconnect to our joy. So, as I mentioned before, I hope that you can join the Black Women We Deserve Joy, our Joy Challenge, which is going on now. So, the task or the call to action is that you start monitoring your joy on a scale from 1 to 10 every day. So 1 is low, 10 is high. Okay. So I will be on for the next 5 days or 4 days, talking about joy with different activities, and just really centering the importance of joy. So I really just am so full of gratitude to Gina and Leslie for being here today and for talking about this very important topic that's so close to my heart, right? So important for us to recenter our joy and also, their enthusiasm in terms of ideas that we might have in the future in terms of collaborating in terms of mental health and AfroFlow Yoga, right? So how do we incorporate our treatment so that it's more culturally based, culturally grounded? So again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. This video will be on the YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, Lifting Us with Climb Consulting Wellness Services. So please watch as many times as you need to. As Leslie said, you can always do breath work, okay? And so it's important for us to know that. And then please share with other Black women who you feel might benefit from this conversation. So I will see you guys tomorrow as I am on live. So thank you for the discussion. Looking forward to catching the replay. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So Leslie and Gina, if you could stay on, everyone else, I'm going to turn off the broadcast. So have a good rest of your day and remember to connect to your joy. You deserve it. It's your birthright. It's your birthright.
Serving.
Okay.
Ashe.
Yeah, Jay. Okay. Have a good evening. Bye.
Bye.